Welcome back, everyone, to our September #HireMe2021 guest panel speaker series hosted by BCJobs.ca. Every month, we have 3 special guest speakers from various sectors join us for a Q&A on what's new with their companies. My name is Chelsea Sweeney, the Director of Events for BC Jobs, and I'll be your host today. BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board, and in addition to this guest speaker panel series, we also offer annual virtual career fairs. Our next one is on October 7th in partnership with TechNation Canada and sponsored by BC Pension Corporation, BCAA, and Bill Direct. And Piranha Games will actually be there too. We also have our really cool Innovators podcast available for you to listen online. Before we get rolling here, I want to encourage the audience to type your questions for the panel speakers into the chat box at any point, and we will get to your questions shortly. Today, we will be offering a pitch event right before we start the audience Q&A. To participate in our pitch event in the chat box, you can enter your name, location, area of expertise, and years of experience. 3 candidates will be drawn for a 30-second pitch to tell our guest speakers about yourself. The person with the best pitch will receive a 30-minute resume and interview consultation with BC Jobs. So I will remind you all again when it is time for our pitch event. So let's get some introductions going here. I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to Natania Mathany, VP of People and Culture at A Thinking Ape. Natania, welcome back to our panel. I know you were just on with us back in June, so happy to have you back. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, thanks so much, Chelsea. Yes, it's wonderful to be back. Hi, all. I'm Natania Mathany. I'm the VP of People and Culture at A Thinking Ape. We're a free-to-play mobile game studio headquartered in Vancouver, although we are now distributed and have gone remote first. So we have folks across Canada and currently are hiring across Canada. We've been around since 2008, where our organization, actually our founders came out of Y Combinator, which is an incubator startup program down in Silicon Valley. And here we are now in 2021 with 4 live games that are downloadable in the Google Play and Apple Store. We make highly social, fun, easy and accessible games in a variety of different genres. So we are also on the heels of launching a brand new title that will go, fingers crossed, worldwide launch in November. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, my team is responsible for everything in the people operations realm. So we are responsible for employer branding, recruitment, training and development, and the whole employee cultural experience. So excited to be here today. And thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Natania, for that great introduction. Next up, I'll pass over the virtual mic to Darius Eghdami, president of FansUnite. Darius, tell us a bit about your backstory.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darius. I am a chartered accountant by trade, but I got into the sports betting industry in about 2014. Started FansUnite. We're a sports betting, esports, and casino game company here in Vancouver, but over the last year and a half, have gone a bit global, which is awesome. We went public on the Canadian Securities Exchange last May, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and been on a great growth trajectory since. So hired about 20 people just in 2021, mostly on the development side. And as Natania mentioned, we're a new waters for us as well, being able to hire people not just here in Vancouver, but all across Canada, in Europe as well, in Brazil. So it's been exciting times for us and exciting times for us as a company.
Cool. That's really cool to hear. Thanks for sharing. And last but not least, we have Jessie Dallin, Human Resources Director from Piranha Games. Jessie, tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the HR director with Purana Games. I'm almost all of HR at Purana Games because we're not terribly huge, but recently we were acquired by the United Global 7 group, which allows us, I guess we have 18 sister companies now. So it's nice. We have a larger human resources team at the global level, and that's been really great for me. I started out in the game development industry back in 2001 as a sound designer and audio engineer. I liked running the business and eventually moved into an operations and human resources field, but needless to say, I've been around for a while. Moved to Vancouver about 6 years ago, and since then I've been with Purana Games, which is an action-based studio here, PC console developer here in the city. As I mentioned, due to the recent acquisition, we have some presence globally now, but we have been hiring remotely a fair bit also with people in different locations. I think that's been a reality for most companies, so it's nice to see that open up for us as well.
Awesome. That's really interesting to hear. Thanks for sharing. Those were all super awesome intros. Now, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with before we move over to the pitch event and our audience Q&A. I'll start off with Natania again, and yes, I am going in alphabetical company order. Okay, Natania. A Thinking Ape, which is a Vancouver-based mobile games company, made the 2020 list of best workplaces in Canada. That is super exciting. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what makes A Thinking Ape such a great place to work in?
Sure. Well, obviously, I'm going to be very biased with my response here. Funny little anecdote: A Thinking Ape, because of the name, we're always on the top of every single list and directory, and I always bug the founders because I think they added that little A at the beginning on purpose so that we would show up in like every list at the top.
Very clever.
But it is a mouthful. Yeah. So we are super proud of that recognition, and Best Workplaces is sponsored by an organization called Great Place to Work. So it falls under their category of these. They have like federal and then like provincial awards that they I guess celebrate. And so basically how Great Place to Work works is that it's all conducted through employee surveys. So all of our employees were asked to complete an anonymous survey. It took about 15-20 minutes of their time, and they ask a whole bunch of different questions based on by culture and compensation and benefits and leadership and these types of categories. And then there's a certain benchmark you need to hit. And so we've been very lucky to land a place on that list. And for us, I ask people this question all the time. And in fact, we're going through a little series of what we're calling a listening tour at virtually at the studio right now, and just chatting with employees about how they're feeling about remote work and what they want for the future and how we operate. And we're asking questions like this, like, what is it about A Thinking Ape that makes it such a great place to work, so that we don't lose, that spirit as we continue to grow. And I think it really comes down to ownership. And ownership is one of our core values. And we extend a ton of ownership to all employees, regardless if they're a co-op student, if they've been with us for 1 day, or they've been with us for 10 years. And where we feel very strongly that is the best possible way to have somebody grow really quickly and learn a lot, is if you can give them all the information they need and tools and resources to basically, we kind of say, get out of your way, hire really great people, get out of your way and let them do their best work. And so it comes down to accountability and to ownership. And that's really what people love about working for us. It's not a place where you're going to be micromanaged. It's a place where you're going to be supported and mentored and coached. And at the beginning, for some folks, that's actually really intimidating, because some people come to us coming from previous workplaces where how much ownership you have over how you do your job and where you do your job and what you're prioritizing is a really new skill set for them. So definitely a bit of a learning curve for some folks when they're joining us. But I would say, just living our value of ownership and treating everybody like an owner, and giving people a lot of autonomy on how they make decisions and access to information. So we try and pride ourselves also on being very transparent. And if people don't have access to certain information to be able to make better and faster decisions, then we say, just ask us. It's not intentional that you don't have it. It's probably just because it's an oversight on our part that we haven't given you that information. So yeah, could go on and on and on about that, but I know we have many other important people to hear from today, so I'll put it to a close there.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful, very open approach that you guys have. That's really nice to hear. Okay, I've got a question for Darius. As a sports and entertainment company based out of Vancouver, FansUnite has recently acquired betting licenses for the UK and Malta this year. This must be a huge deal for the company. Will daily operations be expanding to those countries too? What does this mean in terms of company growth?
Yeah, those were probably our two biggest milestones in the last year, which was great for us. We spent a ton of time getting those licenses, a lot of due diligence, as you can imagine. So awesome for us from a business development standpoint. We get to go after the markets in Europe and the UK, which was great. And then we have been able to hire more out there as well. So we do have a team out in the UK. Our CTO is actually out in Ireland, and we have a group out of Malta. Just opened up an office there as well. We have our casino game studio out in Malta, so most of our casino game guys, as well as our traders on the sports book, are out in Malta. Being able to visit there once, which is really cool place, and a lot of people want to work in a nice little warm island there. So Malta's been great for us. UK, we're going to keep expanding, and we're looking to get more licenses as well. So probably getting some more guys in the US and more here in Canada.
Very cool. That's really exciting. And Malta would be a really cool place to go visit. It's in the Mediterranean, isn't it?
Yeah, very cool. I went once, and I took my mom, and it was a memorable trip.
Wow, amazing. Love it. All right, over to Jessie. Purana Games, which is an action gaming studio also here in Vancouver, was just acquired by EG7, a Swedish video games cooperative, last fall. How does this affect operations here in Vancouver? And do you have some exciting new game collaborations in the works?
So I guess the short answer to how it affects things is it doesn't. Not for 95% of our staff. The business model within EG7 and a cooperative is the exact right word to refer to it, is that, the sister companies do operate independently, but we cooperate and collaborate where is appropriate, right? So, I mean, obviously we see integration at the leadership level, and obviously since we're now publicly traded, we have some reporting obligations and financial obligations to our shareholders, and that has streamlined things to a certain degree. But for our average employee, their day-to-day doesn't look any different. And the nice thing that's happened is that, again, because we have these collaboration opportunities, we have resources that we haven't actually had in the past. So that's very nice. PGI is a very mature company. We turned 21 this past January, so it wasn't a matter of aligning processes and things of that nature. We were pretty solid in that regard, but it's nice to have this bigger reach and this other perspective now. As far as what's happening for the future, I cannot say. we do have things that are being planned. We do have plans for upcoming products, but unfortunately none of them have been announced, which is quite common that we actually can't reveal that. Although I will say that in 3 days, MechWarrior 5 does release on PlayStation. So we're very excited about that.
Super cool. That's exciting. In 3 days?
In 3 days, yes.
Wow. Okay, we'll keep our eye out for that then. Okay, back to Natania. Thinking Ape was recently acquired by Embracer Group in 2020. What does this mean for the future growth of the company?
Yeah, so very kind of similar approach to how Jessie described. And what's kind of neat about that acquisition was there was another Vancouver game studio, Iugo Games, that was actually acquired by the Embracer Group at the exact same time. So we now have a sister company, a local sister company, who we didn't even know was involved in this whole process during the due diligence process. And then when it was announced in February of this year, we were like, oh my goodness, another fellow Vancouver gaming company. So we're pretty excited about that. So it's a really similar setup to how Jessie described their acquisition. For us, one of the main kind of decision-making lenses that our founders were looking at when we were even agreeing to this was that we wanted to make sure we continued to be able to work autonomously, build the types of games we want to make, not have change to staff and leadership and resourcing. So like Jessie said, on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't have too much of an impact for our daily operations. What is exciting about it, though, is that we are now part of the Embracer Group, which has over 140 different studios globally. And they have 8 different operative groups. So we have joined the Deca Games operative group, which is the only free-to-play business unit that falls underneath the overall Embracer umbrella. And so with that, that allows us to just be really collaborative with the other studios within the DECA group. So we have knowledge share programs where we're learning and sharing from each other, and just have more access to resources to be able to help us grow and scale our games. So for the future, it means that we have a little bit more investment and resources to be able to launch games quicker. And that's something that historically we've been a little bit slow in terms of the timeline to how fast we've launched games. And so we have a big goal of wanting to produce more games quicker and faster. So the acquisition has allowed us to be able to invest in that. So we're hiring a lot so that we can start new game teams and launch more games a lot quicker than we have historically.
Wow, that's very exciting. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, Darius, how did the current pandemic affect operations at FansUnite? Did things get busier or slow down, or are most of the team working remotely?
Yeah, it was a bit crazy for us as we were getting ready to go public, and we were a sports betting company, and sports came to a screeching halt, right before we were about to list. So it was a bit nerve-wracking, but we ended up, being able to get public. It was great. Story resonated pretty well, and what that allowed us to do was actually look into other areas of interest. So we were really focused on traditional sports, and we started looking more into esports and casino because those were just completely online, and those didn't really shut down once traditional sports did. So it pushed us towards doing an amazing acquisition. We acquired a company called Ascot Entertainment at the time that focused on esports betting and casino games. So we closed that during the pandemic. And then launched our companies, not just traditional sports, but again, esports and casinos. So for us, it got really busy. We've done, I think, 3 financings in the last year. We've doubled our team. We've gone to new markets, as we previously discussed. So, I know the pandemic's very hard for a lot of people, and the remote working has been tough, but it expanded our opportunities and expanded our hiring pool as well.
Cool. Very interesting. Okay, over to Jessie. What do employees love about working for Purana Games? You are known for having some fun social events, such as a daily games hour and beer Fridays. How do you make your employees feel appreciated?
Okay, so that's a multi-part question. Honestly, I was going, what do they like about working there? It is the people, although there was, we were talking about this earlier, actually, there was very much something to be said for walking into this organization and walking into that office. We're very, very fortunate to have incredibly tenured staff. We have people that have worked there for the entire 21 years. We have people that have worked there for 10 years. We have, the average employee, until we started this latest hiring spree over the course of 2020, had been there for more than 5 years. So we don't see a ton of turnover, which is really nice. And I think that speaks to what the company culture is like. I will say everybody did pivot very successfully when it came down to working to a remote working situation. March 16th is when we exited the office of 2020, and we didn't see a whole lot of issue with that, but that lack of connection with each other was something that was quite notable for me in particular, because I very much enjoyed my time with my colleagues. So that's been interesting. We've handled it. We still have the monthly beer Fridays when we do it over Zoom, except for September. September, we had one in person. We threw an outdoor party for staff on the fancy floor, the outside floor of the casino. It was really nice. But realizing that we have a third of our people now that we've hired over the course of the past year that we've never met was really very interesting. There were people at the party were like, "Do they work here?" So, it was kind of comical at times, but we did figure it out. We are a very pro beer drinking company, so we were happy to have this. As far as the game hour, that's actually been something we've struggled to maintain over the course of the working from home, because it was very visible when we were in the office. People would stand up and be like, "I'm logging into this, I'm logging into that, I'm going to play pool, I'm going to play foosball, I'm doing whatever." And everybody would just break off, or they're playing tabletop. And it just, it's been interesting to try and coordinate that with remote employees. One of the things that we've managed to do, though, is with our product, we've organized playtests in conjunction with our monthly beer Fridays that people seem to have quite enjoyed. They get to view new products, they get to view prototypes, things like that. So that's been fun, and it's one way that we've actually maintained that. But we would like to see more, given that, you know, at minimum a hybrid remote working arrangement is likely what's going to be in the long term. So
awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun, those initiatives. All right. I loved all of your answers. So cool. Next up, we're going to start taking your questions for the panelists. So feel free to type your questions into the chat box, and I'll pull them up and invite you on screen to ask your questions to the panelists. You can pose your questions to one company or to all three companies or two companies, totally up to you. So while you are thinking of your questions to type into your chat, I'll get rolling with one of my own questions. And I will pose this question to all three of you guys. What percentage of your workers work remotely?
100%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with us currently. We are 100% remote. We have opened up our office in Vancouver and made it completely optional for folks that want to go back into the studio. So people can go in studio if they want to. And we have now 2 employees in Quebec and 2 employees in Ontario and 2 employees who have moved from Vancouver to Vancouver Island.
Wow.
So
that's spread out across Canada.
yeah.
Yeah, we're in the exact same boat. It's an optional situation. We do have one facilities person that spends a good amount of time at the office, and a couple of people that really like to be there. One software engineer in particular goes in every day.
Very dedicated.
Yeah, he's a fan. So, you know, not all work from home situations are created equal, and we recognize that, which is why we left the facility open on an optional basis. We have people in various places throughout the country as well, and some overseas also.
Cool. And what about FansUnite?
Yeah, we're very similar to the other two. Everyone is remote except for one person. Our COO has decided since the start he's going to go in the office every day. So we pop in and say hi to him just to keep him, you know, not so lonely all the time. But yeah, everyone else is remote across the world.
Wow. Okay. I'm still waiting for people to pop their questions into the chat box. Okay, we've got one from Omar here. And his question is, he'd like to know how the acquisition of your studio affected your ability/agency to make decisions related to the design of your games. Omar, is your question phrased to all three companies or to one in particular? You're welcome to join us.
I'll take it.
Okay,
ATA.
perfect.
Yeah, so what it was fun for us is that there's no playbook. There's no top-down rule book for the types of games. So it really comes down to, that's what makes us unique, and we're excited about having a very, very wide creative pool that we can tap into. So our mission is we build communities. We're all about creating really accessible, highly social games. So we want to make sure that we remain true to our mission and kind of that very, very broad genre of games. But basically, as long as we're making, really highly social, free to play game where we monetize through in-app purchases, and really it's up to our employees to figure out. We have something called our Game Founders program. And so this is a framework for how we start new game teams within the organization. And so really our model is about not a top-down approach, but a very bottom-up approach, in the sense that we want the people on the ground, our experts who have a lot of experience or who are very passionate about a certain genre or a mechanic or something, present to us what they think will be the next top grossing game. So it's a very bottom-up approach. And as long as we can show through our financial reporting and modeling that there will be opportunities to monetize, then that should be fine.
Very cool. Okay, I think Gregory's got a question here.
Since my kind of short soiree in the tech world, coming from a live entertainment industry, it struck me that most of audio and music in, well, quote unquote, smaller studios, which are not maybe AAA kind of size, it's more about hiring contractors and outsourcing their audio and music work. So I would love to hear your guys' opinion on how would you integrate people coming in from other industries and transitioning perhaps to a model that AAA studios follow as far as audio and music in your projects. Thanks.
I can answer this. We actually have an in-house composer and audio production team. So granted, we do develop AAA product. So I guess that makes sense. You know, those two contracting entities that you mentioned, Upwork and Fiverr, we don't use those. We do contract voice actors though. Through a variety of mediums. We actually have an entire person that's dedicated to this type of the management of this process and these voice acting contractors. So other than that, everything is done in-house. We have an audio designer and a composer on staff. As far as somebody coming in, you know, I used to do this job as well. So it's where I started out in the industry. And I come from a background very similar to you. I had a classical music background, and it was just one day that it was the .com. There was loads of opportunity. Our current sound designer was facing a lawsuit for something. So the owner of the organization came in and dropped a box of sound effects and a copy of SoundForge on my desk and said, figure it out, finish the game, which I did. So to me, that says that realistically, so long as you can transition to digital product and use those tools, there's a non-issue there. The unfortunate thing is that there's not a lot of jobs in this field. So we actually have an audio production team of 3 presently. We're not huge, but I've worked at much larger organizations, one of which had an office of 600 people, and we had 2. So that's going to be your challenge. Getting contract work is far easier, but as far as moving in-house, they're just small teams. So hopefully, you know, you can find an organization that's expanding and move in there.
All right. We've got Hosea. This is to all companies. What attributes do you look for in hiring a 2D production / concept artist within your pipeline?
I can speak to that quickly.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, so for us, we're pretty flexible in terms of past experience and skill set. With our hiring process, we do send out a take-home assignment, which is a pretty typical thing that we do within our recruitment process for all roles. And so we ask people to do that assignment so that we can see your creative skill and how your style kind of matches some of the work that we do. So for us, you know, previous experience in mobile game development on the art side is an asset, but definitely not a prerequisite. And we really like to see within your portfolio all the great work that you've done in the past and kind of see the style guide and what types of experience you do have. Most of our games now moving forward are going to be built on Unity. So if some folks have experience with Unity, that's also an asset. Some of our 2D artists are actually training up right now to learn more about 3D. So, you know, be interested to know kind of where your journey's been from 2D to 3D and that kind of thing. But for us, yeah, we don't look for necessarily one core skill set, but do love to dive into those portfolios and see what your past work looks like. Curious to hear what Jessie would say on that. Our art director usually gets involved to be able to provide feedback as well, and has a good fine eye for creative skill set.
Yeah, so we don't hire 2D. It is all 3D art. We do hire concept artists periodically, which obviously is traditional art and can be done on paper. So that would really be the only thing. However, when hiring artists in general, it is a matter of, you know, we simply look at a resume, look at a portfolio. I do have a recruiter on staff, so she's typically the front line of doing that. We collaborate with, we have an art director as well as some supervisory level as well within the art department. So depending on the department that the individual would be going to, there's some review that happens there. I will be honest in saying I am not a strong evaluator of a 3D artist. I'm like, oh, is this a good rock? I have no idea. Like, I don't know why, but when I don't see it in the context of our product, it doesn't make any sense to me. The best piece of advice that I can give to somebody, and I hear this all the time from our department leadership staff, is that make sure your portfolio is not just what you graduated school with. Make sure that you're adding into it, it's a reflection of yourself, and that we can see some continuous development, because everybody's portfolio coming out of school is kind of like your base model. It is your jumping off point, right? We want to see you add to that. So that's really what's going to get you noticed. We recruit artists as applicants. We also go look for them very actively. We peruse ArtStation profiles, things of that nature. So there is some amount of like headhunting on those forums that happens as well. And then it's really straightforward after that. We don't administer art tests or anything of that nature any longer. We did find that it was just a burden to the process. So there would be an interview and some discussion and a little bit more display of your work, and eventually we'll just make a decision that way.
Great, thanks for sharing, Jessie. We've got another great question from Ivan. Ivan, did you want to come on screen and ask your question?
Hello, yes, sure.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, my question was referring to NAFTA. I would like to ask to all of you guys if, because of our agreements with NAFTA, that can facilitate the process to hire more, well, my concern is more from Canada. And also if the COVID-19 situation has delay or stop the visa work permits. Thank you, that's all.
Yeah, I can actually, we hire a fair amount of people through various foreign worker programs. What I can tell you is NAFTA no longer exists. It is now called CUSMA, which is the Canada-US USMCA. I don't know. They changed it under the Trump administration, and it used to be USMCA. Now at least it starts with the C. They've reversed it so we can pronounce it. However, the list of people that are eligible for this type of work permit has not changed. So realistically, what it is that so long as you meet those criteria, you're eligible for the same type of work permit that you would have been under NAFTA. We do use this program to facilitate hires from Mexico and the United States. As far as how COVID has impacted the process, I really can't speak to that because it's ever changing, but most people that apply and that are moving to Canada with one of these work permits are applying at a port of entry anyhow. So you're applying in person with the necessary documentation, and your work permit is being issued to you right there on the spot. Again, these regulations change on a regular basis based on what's happened with COVID. You would really have to check once you have a job offer what would be required of you.
And Ivan, I might actually be able to speak a little bit more to that. On November 4th, BC Jobs is offering a panel called #HireMe in Canada. And we're going to have a couple immigration consultants and immigration lawyers just chat about, finding work in Canada. So I can send you some information on that after this event today.
Sure, great. Thanks so much.
Okay, awesome. And our next question is from Alcides. I hope I said that right. Do you want to come on screen and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. And you said it perfectly.
Excellent. Welcome. Nice to have you on today.
Yeah, so I am constantly applying to jobs, and it's becoming really tedious and painful, and a lot of times I don't want to do it. But seeing as a lot of jobs also have 100 to 500 applicants at one point, and I don't want my applications to be just brushed off. What tips do you have to make me like us stand out more, or make our like what we present to you more like what can I do like so that you remember my applications?
That's an excellent question. Any thoughts on that?
I have some thoughts, but I'm sure we all have some thoughts, so this might be a good one for all of us to answer. Darius, you haven't really been able to share too much. Do you want to go first? It looked like you were going to maybe unmute yourself.
Sure, yeah. We've hired all over the place. My first employee that we hired was from Craigslist. Last one we hired was through a recruiter. So, we're always getting different types of applicants. I think, it's very difficult, obviously, to get a warm intro, but, that always goes a long way. And, sometimes when we get 100 applicants, we get cover letters with a lot of them. And those ones kind of explaining who they are, their background and why they think they'd be a fit with our company and what we're doing. Those go a long way. Guys who love, the video game industry or the esports or traditional sports, we've had 2-page cover letters, and we always make sure we talk to those people. So anything you can do to kind of make yourself stand out and of why you'd be a good fit goes a long way for us. I've also seen some really, really cool resume designs, which I know maybe it's just kind of a bit flashy, but sometimes they do stand out for us to do a bit deeper dive on those.
I'd also add to it, I would say just like truly attention to detail. There's a lot of noise that comes in with these applications sometimes where people are spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, like naming the company incorrectly. Like honestly, just like a really clean, concise cover letter and resume that's accurate can go a long way. And also highlighting kind of like the ROI or the impact that you've made in a previous role. Like what are some of the key things that you did to make something more efficient or launch something new, really showcasing what it is that you've actually accomplished previously that would show that you would be bringing a lot of value to the organization. And then lastly, taking some time to show that you've actually done your research and that it isn't just simply a cut and paste. I'm applying for the same job, to 10 different companies. Like make it seem unique and customized to the actual organization. Those would be like the top kind of things for me.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Obviously knowing your audience is very important. You really want to make sure that it looks like you're applying to that role. If I'm interviewing somebody and I ask them the question, so what do you know about Purana games? And they say nothing, that's it, they're done. So I'll be really straightforward about that. I'm going to disagree with Darius. We actually don't read cover letters. We don't even have a place to upload them. We have an optional field that you can attach documents, and if you want to put one there, that's great. But it's really, it's not something that we typically look at. I like to see a nice resume, and to Natania's point, I'm with that completely. Like you need to make sure that you're not making grandiose spelling mistakes, that it's nice and clear that you're talking about what value you can provide to the organization. I've had a lot of people apply and they still have that they're applying somewhere else, like maybe to a thinking ape. I've actually had this before, Natania.
Oh dear.
They've sent it to us and I'm like, okay, this is a problem. So, that's an issue, obviously. I get that you need a job and that you're applying to lots of places, but at least correct the, the headline on your application.
You just forward that over to Natania when you get those.
Yeah, I should. This is, you may already have
Sorry
this,
about
but
that.
clearly somebody didn't copy paste here. But yeah, just, making sure that it's nice and clear and easy to read. I always highly recommend the skills list at the top of the resume as well. Like tell us what it is you do at a glance. Very important. You don't need to provide books, use your white space, make your resume easy to read. And that's really going to score you some points. Like, so the actual composition of your CV is very important as well. But every organization is going to look for different things. There's not necessarily a one right way to do this. So look into it, get some information if you can, reach out to people if you can, and follow the instructions to apply to the organization. One thing that irks me is that when somebody applies and they do the exact opposite of what we asked them to. So, not all recruitment processes are the same, and just recognizing that will get you further ahead.
Okay, good to know. I'm just going to tack on a couple of my own questions onto Alcibi's original question for Darius. For cover letters, is shorter better? I guess, no one has time to read a long cover letter anymore.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of indifferent. We just like to know, who they are and why they like what we're doing and want to be a part of it. So we definitely appreciate those.
Okay, good to know. And what about LinkedIn? Do any of you look at LinkedIn profiles? Like what makes a LinkedIn profile stand out to you?
Actually putting information in there. Some people have very sparse LinkedIn profiles, and yet expect you to we're not mind readers, right? The other thing on LinkedIn, some of the approaches I get on LinkedIn are massively inappropriate. People that will just, I know they've changed the format of the messaging utility, the messaging application on LinkedIn, that it feels more like a chat. It's not a chat. It's an email still. Send it like it's an email, tell somebody what you want. Somebody just sends me hi, I'm not going to answer that. I don't have time for that. Nobody has time for that. So, make sure that you're representing yourself professionally. I mean, this is games. We're all pretty easygoing people, but there still is like a line. But yeah, definitely completing your profile is the place to start.
Okay, awesome. Good tips. Maybe Natania or Darius have thoughts to add on LinkedIn profiles.
Yes, please say something. I feel like I'm monopolizing this conversation.
No. I would say, so in our applications on our website, we leave optional places to update cover letter as well as LinkedIn profiles. If people do, sometimes we look at them, sometimes we don't. It's not, a prerequisite, especially for some of our more like engineering development focused roles. Maybe we'd be more inclined to look at their Git profile or something of a different platform. But I would say for me, again, it's like the consistency. So does your LinkedIn profile match what's on your resume? Sometimes we get that where there'll be a disconnect of information, or the resume has different dates than the LinkedIn profile does. So again, it comes back to, for me, that attention to detail and just making sure whatever you're putting out there is consistent across all of your platforms. So we can really we're not asking questions like, well, are they here or are they there? Like, is that current or is it not? So we want to know what's all the accurate little bits about you.
Perfect. Okay, do we have any more questions coming in here? Feel free to keep your questions coming, everyone. In the meantime, I've got some of my own questions here to ask you. What are some trends that you predict for the future of the gaming/sports entertainment industry? Will more and more employees work online or from home?
If I had a crystal ball that would give me the answer to that question, that is what I'm trying to figure out on a daily basis. For us, we believe that the future of work is remote first. We think that this pandemic has taught us all how to do that. Not that we're experts in it, but there is this panel is all about like hiring in the gaming industry, and it's really hard to hire folks in this industry. And so by opening the world up to us in ways that we had never even thought about before, whether it be across Canada or even in Europe and internationally, that's really exciting to us to be able to tap into some talent pools that we weren't able to access before. So we think that it's going to be a mix, and that we need to be, we want to be able to provide flexibility to people in how they work and where they work. And so for us, we do believe that it's going to be distributed first is the future. And there's pros and cons to all sides of that story, but that's where we've landed for now.
I would 100% agree with that. Similar, well, I think we'll always have an office for people who do want to come in. I think some people do want to come in, but our CTO wrote his thesis on remote working before the pandemic. So it was a really nice kind of seamless transition for us. And a lot of our team members are so much happier at home. Like they still like, working with the team and coming in every so often, but they're at home with their multiple screens, their Herman Miller chairs, and they don't want to come back to the office ever. So I think we're going to be remote mostly, moving forward.
I
Yeah,
would
I
love to
can't-
read that thesis. Oh my goodness. Does he have that thesis published somewhere for
Yeah,
us
it's
to read?
somewhere. It's somewhere. I'll find it for you and send it over.
I can't predict a trend. Interestingly enough, I spent the portion of my previous career in a multinational where I had responsibility over functions and locations where I didn't sit. So the idea of dealing with things remotely for me was not that strange. However, again, I'm a little biased here because I don't like it personally. I would prefer to be in an office myself, so long as that there's people there. I think, you know, if it was up to me in terms of what I would like to see, I think people should have a remote working option as a benefit. You know, if there's a need for a skill set in another location, that's great too, but I'd like to see an office environment as well. And I know that we have staff that feel the same. So it's going to come down to what every individual company is going to decide what works best for them. And that's going to be different across the board. But certainly, you know, for the apprehension concerning remote work is gone. That has, you know, it's been wiped out in the past year and a half. Anybody who hasn't recognized that is a little behind the curve, I dare say. But, you know, I think companies are going to find a mix that works best for them.
Okay, good to know. All right, we've got a question from Ridhi. Ridhi, do you want to join us on screen to ask your question?
Hi, I'm actually traveling on the bus, so there may be some disturbance.
Oh, okay. I can tell you're Vancouver. That sounds familiar.
Okay, so my question is for all three of you. It's more on the lines of if I have done like multiple roles but totally unconnected to each other, how do you expect such job seekers to set up their LinkedIn profiles? So I have a little bit of a history in doing some interior design, but I am professionally trained as a game programmer, graphics programmer, but I have done my start of the career in UX industry. So how would you expect my LinkedIn profile to be set up so that you get a good idea as to what my skill sets are and everything?
Great question. I guess it's a little similar to what we were talking before with the LinkedIn profiles standing out. Any thoughts on, you know, roles that are not connected to the job that the applicant's applying for? Should LinkedIn profiles just kind of trim the fat of unnecessary work experience?
I think that's a tough one to answer. In my opinion, it's about like building that narrative and connectivity around the skill set. So maybe there was something that the roles don't necessarily have to be perfectly aligned, but I'm sure there was some skills or competencies that you were developing that you could tie towards, you know, what you are applying for. So I think it's about looking at that and kind of building a bit of a story about yourself and what you can showcase, and really bringing out what are the skills that you're going to add value to that organization. And maybe there's a way that you can tie it up into the like summary of your LinkedIn and bringing out some of those key areas and tying it all together. So it feels like it's more connected, even if you think that it might not be.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. It is the identification and highlighting of transferable skills.
All right, great question. I've got one of my own questions while people are still thinking of some new ones to ask. And this is for everybody. Are you currently seeking to hire more junior or senior talent? Any thoughts on that?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both.
Yeah, same. There's a wide variety of levels attached to the roles we're hiring.
Okay, that's good to know, good to hear. Okay, we've got a question from Omar. Omar, do you want to jump on screen again and ask your question? Oh, okay. He can't come on screen, so I'll just ask his question here. So this question is directed to all three companies. How much do you expect or encourage employees and applicants to contribute holistically in the company, aka an engineer, could voice some inputs regarding marketing or designing, say the tutorial level? Okay, great question, Omar.
not a requirement on our end, but we definitely appreciate it. In my past, I've read so many different books and stories of how different companies started, and a lot of times it is from ideas of the employees. So we encourage it. We talk to our teams. One cool thing we do at our company is just a Slack function called Donuts, and we kind of spoke to it Jessie spoke to it about just people that we've hired that we've never even met. And so we do these donuts. It just pairs you with someone on the team from any part of the team, and get to talk to them. And sometimes they share ideas. So it's always great to do that. We like it at our end. We encourage people to voice their opinions on any part of the business, but definitely not a requirement.
Yeah, yes and no. For us, I'm going to be honest. There's no expectation that you would ever do anything as such. Just if I'm reading how your question's phrased, you're hired to be, in your area of expertise, right? You're not expected to be able to contribute to marketing if you're a software engineer. It's not reasonable, right? It's not what you do. However, there's a lot of communication that happens amongst groups. You're more than welcome to share your ideas. Depending on they may or may not actually come to fruition, but we enjoy that type of brainstorming. But as far as an expectation, there's no expectation. You do get to stay in your own lane if you'd like to.
Okay, awesome. Okay, while we're waiting for some more questions to come through, I've got a couple more questions for you guys. What are some interview tips that you can give us for candidates to have a successful interview with you? This could be like a virtual or in-person interview. What kind of stands out for you in a virtual or in-person interview?
I really like it when people have really good questions at the end. Questions that they can ask the panelists that demonstrate that they're thinking about the organization, or thinking more like on a strategic level, or with a sense of curiosity about how we make games, the types of games, stuff linked to our mission and our values and that type of thing. I think it's, I always hear whenever I'm in interview debriefs, oh, that candidate had such great questions, because it just demonstrates this additional level of like thinking and problem solving, versus, just those like stock questions that it looks like someone just pulled off the internet. So be creative, do your research in advance, and ask good questions.
Perfect. Any thoughts on that, Jessie or Darius?
Maybe a little. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, really. It all comes down to different teams, and they interview a little differently, from engineering to design to art.
Right.
There's not one common denominator there. We're looking for different performance factors. Just be yourself, honestly. We'd like to know who you are. That's really one of the biggest things I do see in some circumstances. People are very, very keen to get to their accomplishments and to get to, their technical proficiencies. And that's great. We are going to talk to you about those, but we'd also like to know who you are. Because there's, again, the people at Purana Games, it's significant for us. So, and plus, when you ask your questions, asking valid questions about the organization, to Natania's point, is important, because we want you to know what you're getting into. We're going to be transparent with you and talk to you about the direction of the company and the realities of working there. So you might as well ask. At the same time, it does facilitate an exchange and a conversation that allows everybody to get to know each other. So I think that's really one of the more important things.
Awesome. Okay, we've got another question from Omar, just kind of tacking on to the end of my question here. What are some tips on including an effective portfolio in your resume? Would you watch a video portfolio or prefer to read a description? Great question, Omar.
I chimed in there in the chat. We personally do love video. We definitely would take the time, especially on our creative side of the business. If people are sending in reels or past live action ads that maybe they've made, things like that in their portfolio. So yes, anything that, really showcases your work and your skills, we would love to see.
Cool. Is that more common these days to get a video portfolio? I've actually never really heard of this.
I don't know. I have no sense of comparison to what I don't know, actually. Full
Okay.
transparency.
I've been seeing them for years. They've been around for a
Okay.
long time. I mean, I'll be
Right
honest, I hate
on.
watching videos. Hate
Okay.
it. Can't stand it. Other people love it. It really all depends. I recommend to do all of it. Like write your written descriptions, submit your art portfolio on have your websites, have your videos, have all the things, because different people are going to look for different things. Different companies are going to have different preferences. As I mentioned in the chat, even different hiring managers within an organization are going to have different preferences. So you're just best to have it all there.
Right. To dot all your I's.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, that's really good to know. Thanks for that question, Omar. All right, I've got another question here. What's important for finding a great candidate? Is it their digital resume, cover letter, or their LinkedIn profile? I guess that was kind of similar to my earlier question.
Any and all the things, really.
You'll take all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Okay, we've got another question rolling in here from LCDs. Okay, perfect. Do you want to ask your question on screen?
I mean, TLDR, what are you looking for? Like, is there like any problem specific to the companies that you're trying to solve? What are like the hottest jobs right now that you're trying to fill up?
Great question.
I could speak to that, and then I'm sure we all have an answer that's specific to our organizations. For us, the challenge that we're trying to solve is we need to make more games faster than we have in the past. And in order to do that, we need the resources internally to be able to do that. So our hiring approach right now is that we need to bring in people from all disciplines, specifically focused on art and engineering talent right now, to be able to jump on board to our live ops team, to be able to learn kind of the ropes and kind of some of our, we have 2 games that are over a decade old. So we have a lot of experience in being able to grow games that have been around for a really long time, and then use that as a really healthy training ground to train people up. And then from there, once people are comfortable and trained up, that's kind of the platform for people within that team to go and start new games and new game teams. So that's pretty simple for us. We're just trying to bring on more resources so that we can invest into growing the business by starting new teams. And historically, as I said earlier, we've been pretty slow at that. And so we're trying to get better and faster at starting new teams and new games.
Very, very similar for us. We feel like we have so much to build and not enough resources and not enough, I guess, good people to hire. So we're constantly looking to scale up. I think of the last 30 people we've hired, I think probably 25 of them have been engineers, and we want to continue being aggressive there and hiring more. So we have guys looking all the time to keep hiring, and we can't hire fast enough, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah, not for us. It's, we're pretty good. There's nothing really specifically challenging, other than our hiring is typically geared toward kind of filling in gaps that may exist within certain teams. So if we need to expand on our level design team, we'll look for the appropriate person at the appropriate level with the appropriate skill set. In the art team, we lacked an Unreal Materials person for a while, and we went out and found that very specific thing. So for us, it's typically filling particular skill set gaps that are attached to whatever product we have in development at the time.
Great answers. Okay, Austin's got a question for you guys. Austin, do you want to jump on screen and ask your question?
Sure. Yeah, so I had a question. So what do you guys think about motion design in games industry? Because as it's been kind of like a newer thing now. So just wondering how you guys utilize it, or how do you plan to utilize motion design within the game industry?
Do you mean motion capture?
No, like motion graphics design. Like previously when I worked at Sprung Studios, we did like UI animation, and we worked like with UX and UI teams to like bring that to life within video games and stuff.
Yeah, that's beyond my scope. I'm not an art person, but yeah, I mean, I honestly can't say. It's not something that we're discussing, though.
Yeah, I don't know if have the technical expertise to answer that as well. I mean, we do have UI UX designers on our team, so each game team has that skill set. Our marketing creative team is dedicated graphic designers, UI, UX, and kind of creative marketing folks who are able to make live action ads and all of the video design. We have one technical artist who also kind of is the main individual who is making all of our like early prototypes and things like that. So without truly understanding the root of your question, we do have that skill set, and I think we're already doing some of that. But looking to, we probably need to build out that skill set a little bit more, because we have, out of 90 people, only like about 6 people who can do those types of, have that type of skill.
I just looked it up. I just did a quick Google. No, this is not something that I'm aware of the fact that we're talking about right now. Maybe it does happen within our UI team. I have no idea. It's never landed on my desk to look for this as a skill set based on what I'm reading here. So it feels like to me it would be appropriate in marketing. But perhaps there's some application in game UI. I just don't know what it is. And perhaps someday it will land on my desk. I can confirm that it hasn't so far.
For sure. Thanks.
Thanks, Austin. All right, I've got a question for all 3 of you. How would you describe your company culture?
I'm not sure where to start. I mean, some of the guys, first few guys that have started, started with us in 2014 have turned into some of my best friends, to be honest. So we have a really close kind of team culture. We all get along at work. We all hang out outside of work. It's gotten a little bit more challenging, obviously, in the last year and a half. But we obviously want highly qualified people. But every time we find someone, we want to make sure they fit in our team and fit in our culture, and not just kind of doing the work, but also being a part of the team outside of work as well. So it's big on our list when we look to hire people.
Okay, great to know. Any thoughts on your company culture, Natania or Jessie?
Yeah, I can go. I mean, essentially our mission is that we build communities. And so we do that through the platform of our games, but also for me as the VP of People and Culture, that's incredibly important to use that as kind of the driving force for the type of environment we're fostering internally. And I used to be able to say internally in the office, but now we don't have an office. So it's been really interesting to make sure that we kind of take what is our culture and think about how we maintain those, the way we celebrate, the way we recognize, the way we, bring people together in this new distributed way. So for me, when I think about culture, it always comes down to our core values, and we have 4 of them. And we want to make sure that we're, as leaders, leading by example and making sure that our people are having really great experiences and making decisions as cultural ambassadors for us. So our core values are, I spoke to it earlier, ownership, the best ideas win, having wonderful arguments, and keep growing. So that's probably a topic for a whole other panel about like core values and what they need. But essentially to us, that's how we like to describe the type of place we are, and the environment we want to cultivate is really focused around our core values.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with the core values piece. It's the same for us, and ours are passion, creativity, and humility. We're an easygoing group of people, and there's not a whole lot of place for, ego within the organization. We like it when people get along. Granted, everybody's got creative differences sometimes, but very easygoing environment. I mean, realistically, we make games that we enjoy making games, the types of games that we enjoy making. Excuse me, it's getting late in the day. I can't speak anymore. But when I first joined PGI, I'll tell you a story. I moved to Vancouver from the East Coast of Canada. When I say East Coast, I don't mean Ontario, I mean New Brunswick, so all the way on the other side. I didn't love it here, I'm gonna be honest. I was a little taken aback. The culture is very different. I didn't find people terribly friendly. I'm obviously over that now, but when I joined Purana Games, I was kind of unsure whether or not I was going to stay, and I took this job. And it's what kept me here and allowed me to have this experience and to actually decide that I was going to reside in British Columbia, stay in Vancouver, where I've built a whole life here now. I remember about 3 to 6 months in that I had joined the organization. I felt like I'd worked there for 10 years in the best possible way. Like realistically, these people made my existence and this transition possible for me. I always felt supported, and these are my own personal feelings, and I really do hope everybody feels the same. I think I actually wrote that all out in like my holiday email at the end of the year as well. But you know, we make our very best effort to ensure that everybody feels, you know, respected and included in the organization, and engaged the best that we can. It's been more difficult being a remote workforce, but you know, we're doing what we can. And if anybody has the answer on how to add to that, I'm all ears. We're please, there's no one size fits all solution, but I'd love to hear everybody's ideas. So yeah, it really is like a strong sense of collaboration, respect, and a strong commitment to each other in the organization.
That sounds awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jessie. All right. Do we have any more questions coming through from the audience here? Oh, and Austin agrees. Manitoba people didn't seem the nicest sometimes, he says.
Obviously I get over that. I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just not the Maritimes. So I was culture shocked, and being around a supportive group of people was exactly what I needed. So
I totally hear you, Jessie. I'm from a small town in BC, and moving to Vancouver was a bit of a culture shock for me as well.
Yeah. Everywhere is different. It just takes some getting used to. That's what I tell everyone now. But come work for Purana Games. You'll feel great.
So true. Okay. Josiah's got a question to everyone. Are there any available opportunities in the art department, and what would be the process in pursuing them?
Everything's posted. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darius.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say I'll give you my email if you want to send over your resume, and I'll send it over to the right people in our team.
Cool. Yeah. If you've got hiring pages, or if you've got your email or LinkedIn that you want to share, just pop it into the chat.
Yeah, with us, everything's always posted. We don't have secret job postings that people don't know about. And when you submit a resume into our online applicant tracking system, there's a common misconception there's some black hole that goes into. It's like actual people on the other side reading those resumes. So yeah, you just apply online. And the reason, you know, we ask that is so that people can organize what it is that they're doing and manage that volume of applicants. But you also feel free to reach out to myself on LinkedIn, or my senior recruiter. Her name's Janet Bang. She'll always be happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, perfect. All right, any other questions? Okay, Omar's got a question here. How have can't read. How have it's gone away. How have OSA food nights been effective now that most people are working remotely?
What's an office food night? I want one. It sounds good.
Is this like special dinners, Omar? Like group events?
I know for us, we used to do something when we were all in studio, which was basically weekly catered lunches. Oh, potlucks and such, yeah. People are definitely missing food. A big way for us in the past, how we used to celebrate, was around food. And we are hearing that a lot, that people are missing that. It's also, you know, an opportunity to come together and share a meal with someone is always fun. So we've had to pivot in the way that we think about that. And it's also a balance, right? It's finding like what works. Not everyone's motivated by food. Not everybody wants a delivery, and some people do. And we have like 90 offices now with headquarters, everybody's home, right? So it's hard to manage, but definitely I would say our folks are missing celebrations around food, and we haven't quite solved that beyond like sending Uber Eats gift cards and skip the dishes and things like that.
Yeah, we do that too. Well, and this is a little embarrassing, but our social activities revolved around beer more than they did food. Yeah, so we still have the beer Fridays. Everybody chit chats on a Zoom call and whatnot. Once it became appropriate to do so, I very much encourage staff to meet in person, go for lunch, do whatever. So those types of things continued once that was available to them, and socializing outside your household was allowed in our market. So very much I encourage people to meet up in person where they can. Obviously, this isn't super helpful to the people who are not in the province. They'll have to rely on, you know, the coordinated online activities that we have. But Outside of that, we didn't really have a lot of things. Although we did throw an in-person party where people could come and they could actually, we had hors d'oeuvres and whatnot, so that was nice. But definitely sending out like the Uber Eats gift cards and stuff is something else that we've done.
Really cool initiatives. All right. If we don't have any more questions coming through, I'm going to start wrapping up this panel for today. So thank you to our audience for all your very interesting and thoughtful questions to our guest panel speakers. And thank you so much, Darius, Jessie, and Natania. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on our panel today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your super busy schedules to join us. I know Mondays are not always the best day to jump on a panel, so I appreciate you taking the time. And if anyone is looking for work, check out A Thinking Ape, FansUnite, and Purana Games hiring pages. Some of the links are already in the chat, so check that out. And don't forget to join us next month on October 18th for our next guest speaker panel series with UBC Solder, Felix Pay, and PDFtron. And mark your calendars to come join us on October 7th at a virtual career fair on Hopin. Details can be found on our social media and LinkedIn, or shoot me an email with any questions to events@BCJobs.ca. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, and see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
See you.